Hello, everybody. Welcome to the Ben Moskalensky Show. My name is Ben Moskalensky. I will be your host today. The topics for today will be in order: education, gaming, free-for-all, and movies. To repeat: education, gaming, free-for-all, and then movies. Our first topic will be education. Not specifically what you did in art class, but more along the lines of problems with it. The American education system, and my guess is education systems all around the world as well, have more than their fair share of problems. And I'd like to discuss with whoever would like to call in for the next hour or for the next 15 minutes, what issues each of your governments, be it if you live in the US, even in Washington State, or in Britain, what they have, how we can fix them, and give me your examples. One thing I find interesting is the prospect of grading via province. In my view, that is beyond inept. It's not some sort of kindergarten. If it does not work like this in real life, if you go to a McDonald's and you order some burger from some millennial, if they give you 70% of a burger, them telling you that they tried hard to make that burger, will that make the burger taste better in your mouth? If they say that they didn't really want to put in the effort, but if they wanted to, they would have, would that have made the burger taste better in your mouth? Would it? In my view, it wouldn't. But that is just one of the many problems. Another problem, bureaucracy. But before we get more into all of those things, and even my own examples and your own calls, I would like to address the matter of the show itself. Now, for those of you who are not deeply informed about the show itself, it is something of an anomaly. Unlike most shows, it is regarding specifically kids' issues. Even some that adults discuss as well, like at some point we'll tackle politics. And we will be redoing sections, of course, because you can't cover a subject as broad as movies and actors in a 15-minute segment, or education. The purpose of the show is to primarily be for children, preferably between the ages of 8 and 16. As an example, a lot of adults are interested in politics, but so are kids. So I will be targeting specifically kids' issues that are specific to kids, but not necessarily only for them. Anyways, back to the subject of education. Bureaucracy is possibly one of the worst things in the education system. That is a very big opinion, a very bold statement, But let me give you an example of how bad bureaucracy can get. I go to school in the Lake Washington School District system. It is not the biggest school district system, not even in my state. But I was born on September, a month in which typically, if you were born after August 31st, like September 1st or later, typically that's where the dividing point for putting you into certain grades is. And the thing was, I was not supposed to go to kindergarten, preschool to first grade. So what they had me do was, after much haggling, they agreed that since my birthday was very close to August 31st, they would have me take a test. And this test would determine if I did good enough on the test, they would let me into kindergarten. And if I didn't, I would have to go right to the first grade. Okay, seems reasonable enough. I'm not sure if any other kids had to take this, but again, reasonable enough. So, and again, I'm this maybe not even 5, perhaps even 4-year-old child who has never been away from mommy or daddy for more than seconds or minutes at a time. So they put me in this scary room. And again, at the time, I viewed this as scary because I wasn't even 5 years old, or I might have been, but barely. They put me in this room alone, this very empty-seeming room, by myself, and they have me take this test. I was typically used to my parents and others being there, but there it was just pretty much an empty room. Now, there were several weird things about what had happened next and the events leading up to it. First of which, I wanted to have my dad in the room with me, not at the same table, in the room, as a calming mechanism, if you will. Again, he didn't even have to be facing me. No, they wouldn't even let him in the room. And again, it wasn't a tiny room. That was the first thing. The second thing, once I had taken the test, we never got the results back. Here I am, 7-ish years later, and I still don't know how well or how good or how bad I did on a kindergarten test. And I'm not sure if they didn't give it to me so they didn't have to push me into the kindergarten, or if it's literally still going through processing to get to us. Either way, it is beyond ridiculous. The policies and the way that complaints are handled. It's just beyond inept. I mean, that's the equivalent of saying, I don't know why I keep coming back to burgers. I guess I'm hungry today. Someone making you a burger, or they say that they made you a burger, with you asked for light onions, and they didn't put on any onions. So then they go talk to the guy because you want a refund, and you're still waiting 7 years later to find out if that guy put onions on your burger. Think about that. Would you? That's just one example. And another thing, they need to find people who care more about the job. These people treat this job like a 9 to 5. If you know what I mean, please feel free to call into the show. Once again, the number for the show, as always, for the first time and currently so, the number is 719-284-5873. Let me repeat that. 719-284-5873. The PIN is 24777. 24777. After you put in the initial number, 719-284-5873, put in the PIN 24777. Now back to our topic for the next 7 minutes, being education. And please feel free to call in at any point you'd like to. They treat this job like a 9 to 5. My family and I have had personal dealings not only with principals, the teachers themselves and secretaries, the people who are down to earth and are actually doing the work and are in the school with the children. Like, I go to a pretty good school, in my opinion. It's a pretty nice family environment. They actually care about this job. But if you look at a principal level or higher up, like actual district officials, they don't care. They simply do not care. They just want to get their paychecks. They want to go home after their 9 to 5 job is over. And a prime example of this is a case regarding my father. Now, my dad cares very much about my school and my education. And I kept complaining to him about our netbooks. These horrible computers we have, these little laptops, atrocious, just atrocious things. They must run at, I'll bet you, if you got a game on them, they probably run at like 2 FPS. They constantly die. It takes 10 or 15 minutes to get it up on a good day, as in turn it on and log in and get everything going. The stupid thing constantly restarts. On tests, I can't even begin to tell you how many tests. We do not have the time right now. I'm not even sure if we have the time in a 15-minute segment for me to tell you everything that is gone wrong on a test with these things. That is how inept these things are. And these netbooks are ancient. And they're also very expensive. And my dad came up with the idea of Chromebooks. He even went through the trouble of talking to Google and possibly getting a deal, which would have to be reaffirmed by the school district. So my dad went through all the trouble of getting a meeting, as in like a full meeting with multiple people, one of which being was the district, I guess you could call it the grand principal. I'm going to use the term grand principal since district leader implies someone who leads well. And my dad gives them the entire spiel. These Chromebooks boot up in 9 seconds. This is a fact I read and a fact I tested. 9 seconds. And you could say, well, I mean, the conversion takes a while. Fine. By the way, this was last year. I want that to be on the record. You would say these conversions take a while. You have 3 months to do it. And now we're getting to the point where pretty soon summer's going to be half a week long, but that's an entire separate discussion. But it was an almost 3-month summer last year. You could have started then. And you could also look at the fact, well, the price, I mean, despite what some Americans think, the district budget doesn't have unlimited money. Very fair point. These are cheaper. These computers, I believe, are 1/3 cheaper. So for every 2 netbooks you buy, you can get 3 Chromebooks. It works better. It's nicer. The conversion, I can't believe it would take that long. I cannot believe it would take more than 1 summer. It's not like a national level school. It's 1 district. And again, even if it's not on that level, fine, take 1 or 2 years. No, they just turned them down. They kept using the same argument of price, even though that was debunked, and time, even though that was debunked. They just sent them home. And I'm not speaking from some anti-government level, whatever, protester who knows nothing about it themselves but is just throwing darts at the wall. I've used both of these in great extent. And it's just absolutely ridiculous that the school district is doing this. It's just inept. Anyways, we will be taking your calls coming up very shortly here. Hopefully pretty soon I can get more than one opinion on this. Despite what I've said for the last 13 minutes, I am not entirely opposed to school. It's much better than Soviet schools in many ways, if you look at it that way. But in some ways, I guess I could say the Soviet schools were better. And now let's kind of ease our way into the final point I'd like to make, or the final point that we have for the next 2 minutes regarding education. And once again, if you're planning on calling in, remember to call in 719-284-5873. Again, 719-284-5873. And use the PIN 24777. Again, 24777. Now, the final point I'd like to make about school districts is progress. And I don't mean just for normal students. I mean to an unbelievable extent. In some I'm not gonna name names. I'm not gonna name names. But in some schools, in like Washington School District, they have ED or special classes, like classes for people who need more needs, like people with certain mental disabilities that go beyond something like as basic as a lisp or a twitchy eye. I'm talking some stuff more on levels of dyslexia, of being dyslexic or having autism. In some schools, or in some of these classes, they do not grade them. And they pretty much do not give them any homework. They do their homework in school. And this is an American school, by the way. This is not some broken, rundown private school in the middle of some like third world country. This is an American school being funded by a district and a government. And now that will lead us into our next segment, being gaming. Be it video gaming, cardboard gaming, or preferably board gaming or card gaming. It can be any kind of game as long as it's a game. If you would like to come in, once again, please get your phone, dial 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Again, 24777. And I think that's a pretty good transition into our next segment, which once again is gaming. Now, one thing I would like to address is the massive jump between 2015. I know this is pretty big leap, but the massive jumps in quality between 2015, 2016, and 2017. Now, in 2015, we had some stellar games. We had stuff like Smash Bros, Mario Maker, and even though they weren't the best in graphics and gameplay, it was a really nostalgic kind of feel, but in better ways. That's kind of how I like to look at 2015. I like to call it the good nostalgia year. That's how I like to look at it. Now, 2016 in gaming was also kind of a nostalgia year. The difference was it was a bad nostalgia. We had all kinds of bad games in 2016. A perfect example, No Man's Sky. To those of you who don't know about No Man's Sky, it's one of I believe it is DICE who made the game, or it was, let's just say PS4, it was PS4 game. It was one of PS4's highest selling games. I believe it's at one point it was like the second highest of all time. I believe it was only beaten by Uncharted 4. Uncharted 4, one of the most popular video games. Period. That's how big No Man's Sky is. Now, the developer of No Man's Sky, or I guess you could say the head of the company, he kept talking about how the amazing things that No Man's Sky was. And to some extent, I'm not going to give him too much slack. It was partially truthful. Like the game's premise was pretty much what it said it would be. It's pretty much, to summarize, space Minecraft. You can go out, you can explore, you can do whatever you want, pretty much. There are other ships you can fight. It's your own universe. It's space Minecraft. You can fly around in ships, go at hyper speeds, discover other people's planets, venture out to new lands, find automatically generated animals like dinosaurs and all kinds of like weird aliens, find like sentinel robots that can shoot at you, meet up with your friends. That's all. A lot of that is true, and a very, very big portion of it isn't. Now, I myself have not played No Man's Sky, but I have seen Let's Plays of it. And the first couple hours of the game are just enchanting. Just absolutely enchanting. You can find animals and plants and planets and different kinds of planets. You can make your alliances. You can depict. You can like go down. You can analyze things. You can dissect things. It's just a beautiful a piece of art with amazing gameplay and graphics. There are over 18 quintillion planets. It is one of the most immersive, one of the most beautiful, one of the most realistic and unrealistic scenes that you will ever see in any video game. And you want to know what happens after those first couple hours? Squat. The game doesn't go anywhere. You dissect some more plants, you get some more animals, you find some more randomly generated animals. Oh, haha, animal glitches out. You fly on some planets, you shoot up some baddies. And that would just make the game a bad game. There were a lot of bad games. But what makes No Man's Sky special was the amount of lies. Now, I'm not going to say exaggeration, because I would be a complete hypocrite if you would watch some of my old YouTube videos if I said that exaggeration was a horrible thing. These people did not exaggerate. These people flat out lied. through their teeth, they just lied. They made all kinds of things. Like, as an example, I've seen people test this time and time and time and time again. You can meet up with your friend. If you coordinate with your friend, you can meet up with him. You can meet up with other people, but the odds are very unlikely due to the massive amount of stuff in the game. And I will give them this. Everyone's No Man's Sky is the same. The planets are always the same. They were actually able to generate the 18 quintillion planets. And that actually did happen, and it's pretty much the same for everybody, but it's 18 quintillion. So my guess is there are things out there that are still undiscovered, even with all those people lying. So I will give No Man's Sky that. They didn't lie about it. But I've seen people jump to specific planets and go to specific spots, very specific spots, like they could find the most specific spot there was. And they looked around like the entire planet pretty much, and they couldn't find any spot more specific than that. They chose the most specific, unmissable spot possible. And they would pretty much stand on the same place at the same time, and they would not see each other. Hello Games, I believe that was it. Hello Games said that you could meet up with your friends. Hello Games said you could get into huge intergalactic planetary battles. And that was a complete, total, and in every sense of the word, lie. We're taking your calls right now. Once again, please remember to call in 719-284-5873 with the PIN 24777. This show will be going on every single Saturday, unless otherwise mentioned, 3 p.m. to 4 p.m., and be converted into podcast form every single Wednesday. No specific time on the podcast conversion. It will probably be posted on Google Plus and or SoundCloud. Back to the show and back to your calls, which will hopefully soon be coming in. Now, the next thing I would like to talk about is, you could say, well, this is the only case in the game. I mean, nothing else is really going on. But they lied about thing after thing after thing. This isn't the only example. There are several YouTubers who have completely debunked games like No Man's Sky. And honestly, you could look for indie games. Like, if you went and looked up in certain indie games, like games that are made by small people rather than the big companies, you could find all kinds of success. I can't even begin to name the specifics for 2016 and 2017. That is its own thing. I'm about to get into that, but it's just so beautiful. If you look up the 2016 indie games, there's so much creativity. All kinds of new game techniques, platform techniques, story, lore, gaming. And we did get some really good games, but most of them were not by companies. As an example, I typically did not like the Five Nights at Freddy's franchise. And then they made Sister Location. Sister Location was great. The gameplay itself was nothing, but the lore was just so entrancing. And the characters, I absolutely fell in love with it. And I watched every game theory. I watched everything I could find on it and just started theorizing with my friends. It was just a masterpiece. But not because of its game. They just ran out of ideas in 2016. And then came 2017. Looks like we're finally getting a call. Wait, hold on one sec. Sorry about that. Hello, caller. Hello?
Oh, hello there.
Hi, you're on the Ben Moskalensky. Hello. Hi, right now you're on the Ben Moskalensky show. Right now our topic is gaming. What would you like to contribute?
Just imagine living the interstitial space, you're nice and tight,
Yeah, the distorted sound effect really made that great. Anyways, everybody, that was the Imagine with Caleb section. It's great that I can say that that's my first call. Anyways, feel free to call in separately and actually contribute. I would say thank you, but I'd be lying. Anyways, back to your valuable call. And as I was saying, 2017, I like to refer to as the good year. And if you'd like, you can contribute on a second call, but I kind of want to put this call in its own separate section of forget this ever happened. So if you'd like, you can hang up and call back in. And to those of you who are wondering how this horrible person got in, please remember, call in the number 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. All right, let's get back into it. So I called 2017 a very good year for gaming, and I only have 5 minutes to talk about this, but that should be enough. 2017 was not a good game, not a good year for gaming. It was an amazing year for gaming, Ben. There were so many great calls, and oh goody, oh boy. All right, we got another caller. Hello, caller. You're on the Ben Moskalensky show. What's your name?
My name is Joe.
Your name is what?
Joe.
Joe. All right, Joe. Right now you're on the Ben Moskalensky show. Right now we're talking about 2017. And basically the point I wanted to make was not only are the companies really coming back, like Nintendo as an example, with making the Nintendo Switch, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe, and Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild, but the indie games and the stuff that was shown at like PAX East as an example this year is really taking off. Like games such as Owlboy and games related to platforming are just absolutely amazing this year. So would you like to contribute something bad about games in 2016 or something good about games in 2017?
There are some pretty good games other than 2017 as well. Like, have you heard of the Ghostbusters game on the PS2?
Is this a recent game?
Not exactly. This was a while ago. It was a Ghostbusters game for PS2, and it was actually made in 2009. It's pretty good.
2009. Right now we're trying to focus on newer gaming, but why specifically would you like to bring that up?
Well, more recent games, they've gotten more interesting. Like, for example, Mario Kart 8 become much more expanded than the Mario Kart 7, Mario Kart 8. Well, Mario Kart 8 Deluxe has become more better or more expanded than the more original Mario games. Because before, they didn't have extra characters like Isabelle, King Boo, and even in Mario Kart 8, it was a huge improvement because they brought back more than half of the roster than it was previously. For example, on Mario Kart in the DS, they took out a whole bunch of people. It's like Dry Bones and Waluigi. Now they added it all in.
Yeah, I see your point. And there are other games that did this too. As an example, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. I do not believe there was anything that was cut out that was brought back, but Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild really was a breath of fresh air. It was. I've only played a little bit of it myself, but from what I've played and seen, it is an absolute masterpiece of art, gaming, original concepts, creative ways to fight and play, story, characters, everything. Sorry, what?
I love the sound of the game. To me, the sound sounds like this.
Great, that's really great. Yeah, those go-karts, Legend of Zelda Breath of the Wild. Anyways, that wraps up this segment. If you'd like, you could stay for our next segment, which is a free-for-all segment, in which you can talk about anything you want for the next 15 minutes. It just depends on what you ask. You don't have to do it on a separate call this time because this is actually a good call, unlike your previous call, which will give me nightmares for the next 5 years. Thank you for that, by the way. To those of you who would like to call in. Sorry, what?
Ear rape.
Good for you. Anyways, to those of you who would like to call in, please make sure to call in 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777. Once again, 719-284-5873 with the pin 24777, 777 after the 24 for your pin, for the pin. Anyways, since we have a current caller, and since no one else is calling in, and I don't have an excuse to boot you for giving me all kinds of horrible nightmares for the next decade, I decided to prolong it because now I can't get that image out of my head. What would you like to talk about? What, Joe?
I'd like you to listen to this and see.
Please don't. Please, dude. Mr. Joe. Joe, please stop. Joe. Joe. When I say free for all, I mean you can do any section you want. I don't believe Sonic Green Hill Distorted theme, which is most likely what most people choose as songs like that, qualifies as its very own section.
We talked about eardrums of busting.
Great to have you. I really am enjoying this first call we got. One thing I would actually like to come to is something that will probably alienate some viewers, probably got some, and probably get some. Politics. It is okay if you agree with me. It is okay if you disagree with me. I want your opinion. I want your honest call, and I want to understand why. Now, honestly, I would not like to talk about politics that would be going back to subject matters regarding the Ronald Reagan election. I would much rather like to talk about current issues such as James Comey. Let's start with James Comey. James Comey will be testifying to the Supreme Court regarding President Donald Trump, and we'll basically find out once and for all, since he'll be under oath, if Trump fired him or if there were like any warnings to stop looking into Russia. So I want to get an initial opinion, Mr. Joe. Do you or do you not think? Just an initial opinion. Just give me a thought. Awesome, thank you, Mr. Joe. Anyways, that was Joe calling in from Kirkland, I think. Hopefully far away. That's all I can. Hopefully Kirkland, Mars. So now let's go back to James Comey. Now, one interesting thing I'd like to mention about Comey is the fact about the timing of his firing. I myself do not believe that Trump asked him to do anything. President Trump asked him to do anything related to Russia. I think the president just wanted to let him do his thing. But the thing about Comey, and I have to agree, Comey loves attention. He is absolutely obsessed with attention. And by the way, I won't be talking about politics for the next 12 minutes. We can switch off a bit later, but I just wanted to talk about Comey to start this off. I noticed how Joe left. I guess he must be a shy guy. Or not. I think we just have another caller calling in from elsewhere. Hi, caller. Are you Joe? Is this Joe again? Hello?
No, this is Samantha.
Get it out. Get it out. What's your name? Hey, we have a show here. Earth to call. Okay. Anyways, while our call. What? Anyways, while our.
Never mind.
What is your name? Simple question.
Samantha.
Samantha, finally. Anyways, apparently we have Samantha calling in right now. Our last caller was Joe. Now he got shy when we got into politics. Hopefully you won't chicken out as well. And Joe, if you're listening to this, sorry I used that analogy, but kind of did. Anyways, Samantha. So right now we're in the free-for-all section for the next 11 minutes. Do you think, I want to get your flat-out answer, just flat-out answer. Do you think the reason President Donald Trump fired FBI Director James Comey was related to Russia?
Well, that depends. It depends, like, if a lot of people, believe that happened, but I think it didn't relate to Russia.
People's opinions people's opinions matter on this show. People's opinions don't matter upon the facts. So you think that President Trump fired James Comey for why he said he fired James Comey, or for another reason?
Maybe for another reason.
Okay, so to those of you who are unclear on the situation, the reason that President Donald Trump said, and I personally believe this myself, why he fired former FBI Director James Comey was because James Comey was focused more on attention than his job, and in the president's view, he wasn't doing that good of a job at his job. And honestly, I'd be inclined to agree. The director, like when it was regarding Hillary's emails, he kind of went back and forth in every possible direction. Like at first he was like pro Hillary, and the Democrats were like, "Go Comey, go Comey," while he was defending Hillary, even though she was clearly guilty. That's again its own conversation. And then he reopened the investigation after it was closed, and then the Democrats and Hillary were yelling, "Boo!" Then he closed it again, and they're like, "Yay!" And things have kind of gone back and forth, and now they're yelling, "Yay" for Comey again because Trump fired him. Now, one thing I think the president should have done was fire James Comey in the first week, because he was clearly not doing his job well even before, and obviously I'm sure the president reads the news. FBI Director James Comey was not doing his job that well beforehand as well. He should have just fired him, but firing him multiple months after made it look suspicious. Do you think he should have waited and made sure, or do you think he should have done what I said, Samantha? Hey, excellent. Well, now that we, oh, okay. I was about to kick you. So, anyways, do you think that President Donald Trump should have kept James Comey for a certain amount of time and seen, which is what he did, keep him and see if he was actually going to change his ways, or do you think he should have fired him right off the bat after his work in the Obama administration?
Okay, I'm sorry. This is a little choppy, then it's hard to communicate.
Can you hear me? Can you hear me?
You're a little like.
I'm a little
I
like.
can hear you, but it's hard to hear, like, find out what you're saying.
Okay, I'll speak slower and louder. Listen, do you think that President Donald Trump should have fired James Comey right away after his work in the Obama administration, or do you think he should have done what he did and waited and saw if he would have changed his ways? Should in summary, should Donald Trump or President Trump have waited? Should he have waited to see if FBI Director James Comey would change his ways, or should he have just fired him right away?
Well, I think that President Trump should. I think he should have waited a little bit to make sure, like, what he was doing was right, or if he was investigating more.
Do you think he should have waited as long as he did?
Yeah, I think he should have waited more. So maybe he'll be getting some good stuff out of the what he was doing.
It could be, but in my view, Director James Comey, he's just grabbing for attention violently. And I think he really does care more about the attention because everything he did got him unbelievable amounts of attention. And whenever he even somewhat faded from the public eye, he would do something like this again to get back in the public eye. I don't think it's timing because he turned his political affiliation back and forth so many times. It's unreal.
Yeah. I agree with you, but it could have gone both ways, you know?
I see what you're saying. Yeah, I definitely see what you're saying. Anyways, let's move on to a different section for our free-for-all. We have 5 minutes left in the free-for-all before we move on to our next section. Samantha, if you'd like, you can stay, or if you'd like, you can hang up. It's totally your call. But if anyone would like to call in, once again, the number is 719-284-5873. After you put in that number, it will ask you for a PIN. Put in the PIN, 24777. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873. And the PIN is 24777. All right, let's go back to you, Samantha. So, what would you like for the last 5 minutes, what would you like to talk about in our free-for-all section?
Well, Joe would like to talk to you.
Sorry, what? Hello?
Sorry, actually, I don't know what to talk about now. So.
Well, again, if you'd like, you could stay, or you could exit call. It's totally your call. One thing I did want to talk about, this is not political, to anyone who got a bit triggered there. One interesting little tidbit I'd like to talk about is the fact that crap, I lost it now. Oh yeah, now I remember. The interesting thing regarding the mindset of, I guess this is kind of political, but not really, the mindset of students who do badly in school. Do you want to know what that mindset is, Samantha? I want to see how many people know ahead of time. And let me know what you thought it was before I say it. I read an article on this. So Samantha, what would your guess be? What kind of attitude do you think children who get bad grades, what kind of attitude do you think they have towards taking tests?
Well, okay, this applies to all, students. Well, I think my attitude toward it is they could have, tried harder, but I think it's because of the family or any other issues they're having, like not enough sleep, not enough studying, and so on and so on.
Mm-hmm. That explains why, and that is a huge factor. Actually, I think that's probably the only factor. But you didn't answer my question. What do you think is their attitude towards taking a test? Like, do they feel good about it, bad about it, happy, sad, mad, excited, scared, confident?
I think they're gonna be nervous, scared that they're gonna be in trouble by their parents, teachers, and all bad stuff.
That was probably what most people answered, and that's what I would think too. But there was this really big survey by some university. Actually, no, I believe it was Harvard. So it's this is legit. So they interviewed students who thought they would get an A or B, and they got either C's or D's. And then they interviewed students who thought they would get C's or D's, and they actually got A's and B's. Most kids, it's actually kind of I know I said I wouldn't get political, but this is a small deal that they actually mentioned in the article. It's actually similar to political affiliation, where kids who think they will do worse than they actually do better, and kids who think that they will do good do bad typically. It's really interesting. It's pretty much the case with anything. It's how confidence works. Confidence. So that's why if you're
I know.
Which is why if you're a smart person.
I have to go now.
Yeah, thank you very much for joining us. This is pretty good timing actually, since we can be moving into our final segment, which will be movies and actors. But thank you very much for joining us, Samantha. Looking forward to having your calls in the future. And Joe, if you're watching, looking forward to your calls as well. Thank you for calling.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. My pleasure. So it's actually an interesting mindset with liberals. They think plans will work out better than they do. So it's actually a really interesting perspective to think about. And my guess is, if you're nervous before you go into any kind of relevant big test or anything, there's probably a reason for that. You're probably going to do pretty good. So if you're nervous, be less nervous, but also don't be less nervous. Kind of confusing, isn't it? Anyways, 3:45 Pacific time. We're in our final 15-minute segment. Once again, the number is 719-284-5873. The PIN is 24777. Once again, first you dial in the number 719-284-5873. And then you dial in the PIN 2477. Make sure you got that right. I'll repeat it one final time since this is our final segment. 719-284-5873 with the PIN that you put in after the main number, which I just said, 24777. Now, with 14 minutes left before the hour, let's address the issue of movies and actors. Now, I actually just came home from a movie right before we started, and I barely got this thing working. I probably should not have gone to the movie, but it was a good movie. I know how unbelievable the statement is going to sound, considering how mature everything I've said has been up to this point. Captain Underpants. I just saw Captain Underpants. My reasons? Yeah. But yeah, I actually did just watch Captain Underpants in theaters. And honestly, it was worth it. It was a solid 4-star movie. For people of that age, it was great. There was no political message, no big deal. It's like it had a really nice message. It had like nice child-friendly jokes, no like hidden adult jokes. It was the exact opposite of Zootopia. A really good movie with a really good message. And honestly, I just missed that in cartoon. It's been so long since we've just had a well-animated comic book-like cartoon that has spoken to people really nicely without pushing any kind of big message, without being some big philosophical hibbida-hoobida. Because movies like Arrival that just speak to you, they just get into your soul and talk to you. And I was just thinking, I just every time I think about something philosophical, I always think about going back to Arrival. And if you haven't seen Arrival, they gave it, I believe the rating, I'm actually going to look this up right now. Whatever rating it has, it's not high enough. I would literally, I say this about practically no movies, I give it a 100%. I'm not kidding. 100%. Rotten Tomatoes gave it 93. Don't trust Rotten Tomatoes. If you want to trust me over Rotten Tomatoes, 100%. Go see that movie. Yeah, got in the box office, got 200 million. I think it should have gotten 2 billion. It was just beyond stellar. I mean, it was just such a masterpiece. But honestly, I'm really happy where I've been seeing a lot of movies I've been seeing lately have been going in a good direction, and it's only going to get better from here. And it's actually kind of like, it's kind of funny. 2016 has always been the bad year, and 2017 is back to the good year. It's the same thing. Like, we didn't have that many great movies in 2016, at least not in comparison to the bad movies. Like, I remember my dad saw Kingsman, and I saw Home on the same day. And I actually, funny enough, I got sick the same day after seeing Home. And when I got Kingsman, I got a 4. And when we saw Kingsman, my GPA went up like 0.1 or 0.2 up. Kind of funny how that works, and it makes sense. I got violently sick after Home, by the way, because Home, horrible movie. And it's not because there was any weird message or anything. It's not because like Zootopia, why it's a horrible movie where you can easily pinpoint it. It was just an all-around bad movie. They had some decent actors, I think. I don't remember now, but I believe it had some pretty decent actors, according to most people. But the movie itself was just not good. But then again, there were exceptions. Movies like Kingsman that came out, which were just cinematic masterpieces. Everything about Kingsman was pretty much perfect. Another movie, I wouldn't give Kingsman a 100, but I would, because it wasn't like deep or anything like that. And I do like movies that are pretty deep. But I would give it like a 95 or like a 97, like still amazingly high. And if you don't like philosophical movies, you like more James Bond, Jason Bourne movies, Kingsman is a godsend. But like 2017, we have Despicable Me 3, and actually, I have a good feeling about Despicable Me 3 because Minions was garbage, and that came out in 2016. We have again Captain Underpants, Guardians of the Galaxy 2, which was just as good as the first one in my view. And the only reason I wouldn't say it's better was because the first one, it always has that first one off. Like as an example, I would say that Jurassic World was actually one of the few movies that was good in 2016. I would say that Jurassic World was better than Jurassic Park, the original Jurassic Park, from an unbiased standpoint. But the reason they're equal in my view was because Jurassic Park 1 was the first, and of course it was still really good as well. Because Home was the first Home, and Home was still garbage. So, in conclusion, 2016 equals bad, 2017 equals good. But since we have 10 minutes, I'm gonna keep talking. But yeah, like if you have a kid or no kid, or a group of kids who are younger, the movie's a bit too old for people of like my general age, which is like pre-teen to teen. But like for kids who are more on the age of 6, 7, 8, Captain Underpants is just a great movie. It's funny. It's everything about it is just really nice. And I walked out of the theater with just a nice feeling. And honestly, one thing I kind of find weird. I guess the 2016 equals bad, 2017 equals good rule for Kevin Hart applies as well. In 2016, Kevin Hart really wasn't that good in my view. Like that was the Foozy Tube year, I believe. And he did that crap at the Oscars, which wasn't that good in 2016. Not as bad as this year's Oscars, though. I mean, I gotta give 2016 Oscars were crap, but this year is just horrible, horrible. And that pretty much, in my view, kind of turned Kevin Hart off, in my view. And YouTube issues will definitely have its own segment at one point. Don't you guys worry about that. The Adpocalypse, FoozyTube in general, Keemstar, Onision, all of these people, Markiplier, Jacksepticeye, PewDiePie. Oh my gosh, I have so much. Well, PewDiePie, I had my own separate episode on him, but that wasn't part of this. This was like a separate podcast. Check that out if you haven't, by the way, the Drama for Your Mama podcast. But I'm going to be doing more of this. YouTube I can do that forever and ever. I can even have I can probably have 4 or 5, maybe even 6 episodes on FoozyTube, or segments on FoozyTube alone. And maybe the schedule for the show will change at some point. I kind of like how it is right now because I'm feeling kind of tired, but I'm not dead tired. And it's definitely more than a good amount of time for calls to come in. We already got 2 calls. Well, if you count the Imagine with Caleb segment, and I guess you could call it 3 calls. Yeah, he doesn't have to call back. We'll call it 3 calls. We got 3 calls in our first show, and it's not even over yet, so I'm happy with that. Hopefully you can get 4 or more next time. But I kind of went off track there. And by the way, before I get back, yes, this is how the schedule will be for now, unless I update every Saturday, unless otherwise mentioned, between 3 and 4 p.m. Now, movies. There's going to be Despicable Me 3, and there's going to be another Kingsman. And honestly, after the last James Bond in 2015, and I did earlier mention that 2015 was a good year. After the last James Bond, which was Spectre, which was really good, by the way, I have high hopes for whenever the new James Bond's going to come out. And although but then again, there are exceptions to every rule. Like I have throughout this episode or show, I'm going to call it show. Throughout the show, I've listed good things about 2016. For one, Trump being elected, yay. But and there are exceptions for 2017 as well. As an example, the amazing reality of the Emoji Movie. Can't wait for the Emoji Movie. Boy, won't that be just great. But yeah, I don't know about you, but if I were you, I would not waste my money on that. On the other hand, Shrek 5, yeah, that's going to be great, I'm sure. How many Shreks were there in Shrek 4 again? How many times have I said Shrek in the last 2 minutes or so? Anyways, I gotta stop saying anyways. Movies. Yeah, I'm sure this year's gonna have exceptions. I saw a lot of bad-looking movies. Like as an example, I saw a trailer for a movie called Step. It just looked awful in my view. Just awful. Documentary. Yeah, 100% of Rotten Tomatoes. I'm sure. I'm sure. Um, but yeah, it just looks awful to me. I mean, for some reason, Rotten Tomatoes gives it 100%. I don't know why. Like, if the trailer is better than the movie, then the movie's got to be negative 55% easy. So yeah, every rule has its exceptions, at least as far as years go. Because heck, there's 365 days this year, 366 last, and we don't know everything about this year yet. Things might go super downhill from here. Owlboy, going back to video games real quick, looked really good, but they might screw it up. And heck, who knows? They screwed up Minions, so maybe they'll screw up Despicable Me 3. Oh yeah, but Kevin Hart has been doing really, really good lately. I kind of got off him. Where he's picking and choosing his battles politically very nicely. He's appearing in good movies. He's funny now. And again, he was good in Central Intelligence, but that's back to 2015. So I got good feelings for him. I'm very excited for The Mummy. I watched The Mummy when I was little, and I really like this new feel they got. I'm happy Tom Cruise is in it. And I like how it's PG-13, which gives it a much spookier feel, but it's not to the point where it's just another Hollywood horror flick. I'm really liking what they're doing with this. So props to whoever decides to make The Mummy more of a, I guess you could call it a horror adventure flick rather than just an adventure flick. I really like this new feel, and I have good feelings for it. And Emma Watson still, still loser. That's nothing new. Another lucky Hollywood unit. La La Land. That is one thing I wanted to bring up. Did that come out last year or this year? Probably this year, because this is a good year. Got a computer next to me, so I'm like, okay. It was last year. That's interesting. Well, it was December. Can we count that? No. Now, La La Land was viewed as some kind of gift from above. I really liked La La Land, but it has a 93% on Rotten Tomatoes. 93. That's, I mean, I would give it 4.5 stars, but 93, that's just really high. La La Land was a musical. I guess you could say, like Dreamgirls kind of a thing. I didn't watch Dreamgirls, but from what I hear, it's very similar. But La La Land, I would recommend it. Like, just rent it at some point. I wouldn't say it's worth buying, but rent it at some point. It's no Godfather. But Ryan Gosling was pretty good. Emma Stone was okay. And I got stupid City of Stars stuck in my head. I also drunkenly sang that at prom last night, so that's a great way to spend my first ever prom. Anyways, in our final 2 minutes, we don't really have much time to do pretty much anything, but except, kind of go over a glossary. But if you want to, and I'm sure I can stretch this 1 minute late, make sure to call in 719-284-5873. After you've done that, it'll ask for a PIN. Put in the PIN 24777 and write this number down somewhere, like for future reference. If you don't want to wait, you want to call in right away or something like that. So I'm going to give you a sec to get your stuff, and do that while I'm talking about this. Get something to write this down. You can copy it digitally later, and I'm going to go over this again. 719-284-5873. Then it'll ask you for a PIN. And if you want, you can write down that it'll ask you for a PIN, or don't. But just make sure that you put in PIN as a separate thing. PIN. The PIN is 24777. Again, 24777. Yeah. So that will pretty much do it. That wraps this up. If you like this, please share on social media and everything. Let me know your opinions on each one. Maybe put in suggestions for the show in general. Put in suggestions for the free-for-all. And if you don't want to put in a suggestion online on my Google Plus or go get any of my books or anything like that, which I wouldn't mind, by the way, call into the show yourself. I just gave you the number. I'll be copying the number everywhere online. So just call into the show yourself. Anyways, this has been the Ben Moskalensky Show. The very first show. I'm really happy how it turned out, and that marks the 1 hour. Bye, everybody.